The desert heat was unbearable, but the real chill came from the email I'd just opened. Divorce papers. No warning. No call. Just a cold legal document signed by Catherine, my wife of 20 years. My hands trembled as I scrolled further. Our joint account, emptied. Every last penny gone. She betrayed me while I was deployed, fighting halfway across the world. While I was risking my life, she was dismantling mine. The woman I trusted most had turned executioner, carving out everything we'd built together. But what Catherine didn't know was that betrayal cuts both ways. She believed she'd left me powerless, crawling home to nothing. She thought she'd broken me. But I smiled, because Catherine had no idea what was coming. Revenge isn't loud, it's patient. And mine was just beginning. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment, letting me know where you are viewing from. Kindly hit the like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family loyalty and betrayal. They might just change how you see your own relationships. It all started with a dream I thought would last forever. My name is Kelvin Hilton, and at 50 years old, my life felt as solid as a foundation built to last. I had served in the military for over 2 decades, a career that took me all over the world, but always brought me back to Catherine. We met when I was 35 at a community fundraiser in our small Texas town. She was vivacious and charming, with a laugh that could make the world feel brighter. I was the steady one, the anchor in her life, or so I believed. We built a life together, a cozy house, shared holidays, and grand plans for the future we would share. But looking back, I can see the cracks I ignored, the subtle shifts that hinted at the storm to come. Our wedding day was perfect. The sun shone down on us as Catherine, beautiful in her white dress, squeezed my hand and whispered, "Kelvin, you're my rock." Those words became a part of me. I worked tirelessly to provide for her, saving every spare penny I could. My parents, a pair of humble farmers, had left me a modest inheritance, a sum I had quietly built upon with my combat pay over the years. This money, meant for our retirement, and that dream house by the lake we'd always talked about, was in a separate account she didn't know about. I trusted Catherine with our day-to-day finances, letting her manage the joint account while I focused on my career. She always wanted more, fancier vacations, newer cars, and I gave in, thinking her happiness was worth any cost. My job was my purpose, and our marriage was my safe harbor, my anchor. But as I rose through the ranks, the pressure mounted. Promotions came with longer, more frequent deployments. During our video calls, Catherine's complaints became more pointed. "You're never here, Kelvin," she would say, her voice tinged with frustration. I dismissed it as the stress of separation, never imagining the truth. Just before my last deployment, we had a quiet dinner. "I'll miss you, Kathy," I told her, my heart heavy. "This tour will be tough, but we'll get through it together." She nodded, her eyes avoiding mine. "Just come back safe," she replied softly. That simple sentence was the last honest exchange we would ever have. I packed my bags, my gut churning with a vague sense of unease. I pushed it down, telling myself it was just pre-deployment jitters. I had too much at stake, my career, my family, my savings. What I didn't realize was that the foundation I had so carefully built was already crumbling. Now, sitting in that foreign land, the email changed everything. But even then, a spark of defiance grew. She thought she had won, but I had one card hidden. What would I do with it? The moment I read that email, my world shattered like a window hit by a rock. I stared at the screen, the harsh words blurring as tears mixed with the sweat on my brow. How could Catherine do this? Deployed in a war zone, I was fighting for our country, for our future, and she was stabbing me in the back with a digital message. The shock hit me with the force of a physical blow, leaving me breathless and alone in that cramped tent. Disbelief was the first wave to hit. This had to be a mistake, a cruel, malicious joke. We had shared so much, from late-night talks about our dreams to the mundane details of our daily lives. Now she was gone, and with her, half of my identity. The emotional fallout was immediate and brutal. Anger boiled up, hot and fierce, making my hands shake. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I was in a military camp, no privacy, no escape. The raw fury was followed by a deep, hollow sadness. I thought of our good times, walks on the beach, her infectious laughter during family dinners. It all felt like a lie now, a carefully constructed facade. The legal papers attached to the email were just salt in the wound, but logging into our joint bank account delivered the final, crushing blow. Empty. She had drained every last cent, leaving me with nothing but the debt on our shared credit cards. The immediate consequences were staggering. I was stranded, unable to access money for anything, not even to call home or send a message to my family. My commanding officer noticed my apathetic state during briefings, but I gave him some vague excuse about feeling ill. Inside, I was a wreck. That night, I lay on my cot, the sounds of the camp a distant hum. "Why, Catherine?" I whispered into the darkness. A part of me, the part that still loved her, wanted to reach out, to beg her to reconsider. But my pride, what little I had left, stopped me. I remembered our last phone call, her voice flat and distant. Now I knew why. She had been planning this for months, perhaps even a year. The thought made me feel sick to my stomach, a nauseating combination of betrayal and self-blame. How could I have been so blind? But then, amid the pain, a cold clarity emerged. The secret account. The money I had been saving for years. It was a small comfort, but it was mine, and it was untouched. Catherine thought she had taken everything, but she had only taken what I had given her. She didn't know I was still holding the one thing that mattered. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling of the tent, I realized this wasn't the end. This was the beginning of a different kind of fight. The question was, what would I do with the one card she didn't know about? A cold fury settled over me, replacing the gut-wrenching pain with a fierce resolve. I knew I had to uncover the full truth. No more sitting in the dark, wondering what I had done wrong. I needed to know how deep Catherine's betrayal went. My fingers flew over the keyboard as I started digging, sifting through old emails and bank statements in the quiet solitude of my tent. The more I looked, the more the lies piled up, a sickening pyramid of deceit. I reached out to my old friend Mike, a retired Marine who lived in our town. "Mike, something's not right with Catherine." I typed in a message, my heart pounding. He called me back immediately, his voice grave. "Kelvin, man, I've been hearing rumors. She's been seeing someone else. It's an open secret." His words hit me like a physical blow. The thought had crossed my mind, but hearing it confirmed was a new kind of pain. I started to search for evidence, digging through our shared cloud storage, finding deleted photos and messages that hinted at trips she took without me. The emotional obstacles were immense. The military bureaucracy made it difficult to access certain records, and I felt a million miles away, isolated and powerless. But I pressed on, driven by a powerful mix of rage and desperation. The deeper I dug, the more profound the betrayals became. The affair wasn't just a recent fling. She had been seeing this man for over a year. I found receipts for vacations, expensive dinners, and gifts, all paid for with money she had siphoned from our joint account. And the man, he was a co-worker from her office. They had been planning their new life together while I was preparing for my deployment. The thought made me feel physically ill. She had been playing a long game, a cold and calculated manipulation. I found one true ally in all this, my sister. I sent her a brief email explaining what was happening. She responded quickly, her words a lifeline. "Kelvin, you're stronger than this. Don't let her win. She's a monster." Her support gave me a flicker of hope, but it also raised more questions. What else was Catherine hiding? Had she been manipulating our mutual friends, turning them against me? The thought gnawed at me, a new, deeper betrayal. I had to know everything. The more I knew, the more power I had. And I had a feeling that power would be the key to my comeback. I hit rock bottom that night, a million miles from home and alone in the desert heat. The weight of everything, the divorce, the stolen money, the affair, crushed me until I couldn't breathe. I paced the small tent, a living storm of emotions. The pain was unbearable, and I knew I had to make a choice. Let this destroy me or use it to rise stronger than before. The emotional peak came when a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. Our first apartment, small and cozy, and me proposing to Catherine on a rainy evening. "You'll always have me," she had promised, her eyes shining. Now that memory was nothing but ash. A white-hot rage built up inside me, fierce and all-consuming. I wanted to hurt her, to make her feel a fraction of the pain she had caused. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to demand justice. But then, a quiet voice in my mind cut through the noise. Enough is enough. This was her narrative, her story of betrayal. I could choose to be the victim, or I could choose to write my own ending. In that moment, a sense of clarity washed over me. I would not be a victim. I would not let her win. I had the secret account, my inheritance, and a resolve that had been forged in 2 decades of military service. I would take back what was mine, and I would make her pay for every single lie. The decision felt like shedding a heavy cloak of despair. It was both terrifying and liberating. What if my plan failed? What if I lost everything for good? The fear was a cold knot in my stomach, but the resolve was a fire in my soul. As dawn broke, I stared at the horizon, the rising sun illuminating the desolate landscape. I started plotting my first steps, each one a calculated move in a game she didn't even know she was playing. But as I began to plan, a new fear crept in. What if she was one step ahead? What if she had a trick up her sleeve I hadn't uncovered yet? The thought made me pause, but it also solidified my resolve. I had to be smarter, faster, and more ruthless. There was no going back now. My breaking point had become my beginning. My mind, once a chaotic storm of emotions, was now a cold, calculating machine. The idea of revenge had taken root, and it grew with every hour. I sat down with my laptop, hidden in a quiet corner of the base, and started mapping out my plan, a step-by-step blueprint to dismantle Catherine's new life. First, I needed to secure my assets. I began the painstaking process of transferring money, a quiet, methodical buildup of my war chest from my combat pay and inheritance. It was a risky operation. I had to navigate bank security protocols and make sure there was no trace that could lead back to me. Every transaction was a careful maneuver, a move on a chessboard. Once the funds were secure, I moved on to the next phase, our dream house. The one we had talked about for years, the one by the lake she had shown me pictures of. I contacted the real estate agent, posing as a serious buyer from out of state. "I'm interested in the property," I said during a phone call, keeping my voice steady and professional. The agent was eager, and I made an offer she couldn't refuse. But a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. What if Catherine heard about the sale? The real estate world was small, and a transaction like this could easily reach her. Next, I worked on gathering the final, irrefutable evidence of her affair. I meticulously scoured social media, old photos, and public records. An unexpected obstacle arose when I couldn't find a direct link between her and her lover's professional life. It felt like a dead end, but I persevered, using a different angle to find the information I needed. The suspense was a constant companion, a nagging voice in my head. Would this plan actually work? Would all my efforts be in vain? Finally, I planned the execution, timing it perfectly for the moment I would return home. It would be a 2-pronged attack. One public, the other private. I would let her believe she had won, only to pull the rug out from under her feet in the most public way possible. As I fine-tuned the details, a chilling thought hit me. What if she had more tricks up her sleeve, something I hadn't uncovered yet? The possibility was real, and it made me even more careful. I knew I couldn't afford a single mistake. The day I stepped off the plane back home, I felt a mix of nerves and a cold, focused calm. It was time. It was time to put my plan into action and watch Catherine's carefully constructed world crumble. I let her believe she had won. I stayed low, observing her from the shadows as she went about her new life. She looked happy, content, and completely oblivious. My heart hardened at the sight. Then I struck. The first blow was the house. I had closed on it from overseas, a clean, quiet transaction. I made sure the news of the sale spread through our small town's grapevine. When Catherine found out, I arranged a meeting. She came, looking smug and confident. "You thought you could take everything from me," I said, my voice low and steady as I slid the property deed across the table. Her reaction was a sight to behold, shock, then disbelief, then a flicker of panic in her eyes. "Kelvin, this isn't fair," she sputtered. I didn't argue. I just smiled, a small, triumphant gesture that said everything. The second blow was more personal. I used my intel to find her new lover's wife, a woman who worked at a local bank. I sent her a discreet, anonymous package containing all the evidence of her husband's affair with Catherine. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Arguments erupted, and the scandal spread like wildfire through the town. Catherine's reputation, once pristine, was now in tatters. She lost her new relationship, her friends distanced themselves, and her perfect new life evaporated. But as I walked away, a strange pang of regret hit me. Had I gone too far? The satisfaction of seeing her face was real, but it was quickly replaced by an emptiness. I had won, but at what cost? In the end, she was left with nothing, just like she had left me. But as I drove away, a new question lingered. Had this revenge truly brought me peace, or had it simply left me as empty as I was before? I was no longer a victim, but was I a victor? The answer wasn't as simple as I had hoped. The dust settled, but the scars remained. Catherine's life fell apart. She lost her new relationship, her friends, and the false life she had built. I watched from afar, and while I felt a sense of vindication, the feeling was not as sweet as I had imagined. The long-term consequences were vast. I used my secret money to rebuild, buying the house and creating a new life for myself. It was the dream house, but it was a lonely dream now. Catherine, on the other hand, ended up in a small apartment, her reputation in ruins. She had to start over with nothing, a mirror image of the life she had left me with. For me, the emotions were a constant struggle, relief at being free, but also a deep sense of loneliness and regret. I learned a hard lesson. Revenge does not heal wounds, it only deepens them and creates new ones. My triumph felt hollow. I had been so focused on winning the game that I hadn't considered what winning would actually feel like. I had held all the cards, and I had played them perfectly, but I was still alone. But there was one final twist. A few weeks after everything had settled, I was going through some old legal documents and found a small note tucked away in a file. It was a card from my father, from before he passed. It simply read, "True wealth isn't what you have, but who you have." The words resonated deeply, and I realized I had lost something far more valuable than money or a house. As I sat in my new home, staring at the lake, I finally understood. I had won the battle, but I had lost a piece of myself in the process. I had exposed her, ruined her life, but in the end, I was still the one left to pick up the pieces. I had my revenge, but I also had my solitude. The best victory was not in letting her lose, but in finding a way to truly live after the loss. Thank you for spending your time with my story. Feel free to share your thoughts or reactions in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.